The video had 847,000 views when I finally saw it. My best friend Cassandra stood in front of a ring light, tears streaming down her perfect face, confessing to the world that she'd lied about me. "I made it all up," she sobbed. "Kyle never did any of those things. I destroyed an innocent person because I was jealous." The comments were brutal. "Monster. She should be in jail. But Kyle's life is already ruined." I sat in my studio apartment, surrounded by the remnants of everything I'd lost, and felt nothing. The apology had come exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days too late. Before I tell you how I made Cassandra's empire crumble using nothing but patience and her own words, let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone you trusted destroy you just to see if they could? Drop a comment. I'm reading every single story. My name is Kyle Patterson, and at 26, I should have been celebrating my architecture firm's first major contract. Instead, I was stocking shelves at a hardware store for $12 an hour, wearing a name tag that nobody bothered to read. 3 years ago, I had everything. A partnership at Brighton Design Studio, a downtown loft, a fiancée named Alexis who made me believe in forever. I had a best friend since middle school, Cassandra Wells, who knew every secret I'd ever kept. Then one October morning, everything shattered. It started with a text from my boss. "We need to talk. Office. Now." I remember the fluorescent lights flickering as I walked down the hallway. I remember thinking it was about the Henderson project, maybe a client complaint. I had no idea I was walking toward my own execution. 3 women from HR were waiting. My boss, Harrison Burke, wouldn't meet my eyes. Cassandra sat in the corner chair, dabbing at her mascara with a tissue. She looked terrified. My stomach dropped before anyone spoke. "Kyle," Harrison began slowly, "we've received some very serious allegations." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printed screenshots. Messages I'd supposedly sent to Cassandra. Graphic, threatening, sexually explicit messages that made my skin crawl just reading them. "I never wrote these," I said immediately. My voice sounded distant, underwater. "These aren't even from my number." Cassandra's voice cracked when she spoke. "Kyle, please stop lying. You've been doing this for months. The late-night calls, showing up at my apartment, the things you said you'd do if I told anyone." Her hand trembled as she pointed at me. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for her to laugh and say it was a prank. She didn't. They suspended me that afternoon. Pending investigation, they called it. I tried calling Cassandra 17 times on my way home. Every call went straight to voicemail. I texted her. "Cass, what are you doing? We've been friends for 14 years. Why are you lying?" No response. Alexis was waiting in our loft when I got home. She'd already heard. Cassandra had called her first, crying, telling her everything before I even left the office. "Is it true?" Alexis asked. Her suitcase was already packed by the door. "You know me," I said desperately. "You know I would never." But doubt was already pooling in her eyes like poison. "I don't know what I know anymore," she whispered. She left that night. The ring I'd bought 3 weeks earlier, hidden in my sock drawer, suddenly felt like evidence of some crime I hadn't committed. I sat alone in our apartment and tried to understand what was happening. I couldn't. The police report came next. Cassandra filed it 4 days after the HR meeting. Harassment, stalking, threatening behavior spanning 6 months. She had evidence. Dozens of text messages from a number registered to a burner phone purchased in my name. Security footage of someone matching my build standing outside her building at 2 in the morning. A voicemail recording of a man's voice, digitally altered but close enough to mine, saying things that made the detective taking my statement flinch. I was home those nights, I told the detective. Check my building security. Check my credit card statements. I was never near her apartment. He looked tired, sympathetic even. "Mr. Patterson, people who do these things are careful. They plan. The evidence says otherwise." No charges were filed. Not enough for criminal prosecution, the DA said. But enough to destroy me anyway. That was the genius of it. Cassandra had built a case strong enough to ruin my life but carefully crafted to stay just below the threshold of perjury consequences. Social media moved faster than the legal system. Cassandra posted a vague statement on her Instagram. 20,000 followers saw it within an hour. Speaking my truth about someone I trusted. "To every woman who's been afraid to come forward, I see you." She never named me. She didn't have to. Our mutual friends connected the dots immediately. Former colleagues, college classmates, people I'd known for years started unfollowing me in waves. My Instagram comment sections filled with strangers calling me predator, creep, abuser. Someone created a Twitter thread documenting every interaction Cassandra and I had ever had, reframing innocent moments as evidence of obsession. That photo of us at her birthday party 3 years ago, my arm around her shoulders? Proof of inappropriate behavior. The time I drove her to the airport at 5 in the morning because her car broke down? Controlling and possessive. Everything I'd ever done as a friend became ammunition. Brighton Design Studio terminated my contract 3 weeks later. They called it mutual separation, offered me 2 months severance if I signed an NDA. I signed. I needed the money and I had no fight left. My landlord received an anonymous email about the allegations. He didn't renew my lease. I moved into this studio apartment in a building where nobody knew my name or face. I applied to 47 architecture firms over the next 6 months. 47 rejections. My name was searchable now. Google showed the vague accusations, the whispers, the social media posts from people defending Cassandra's bravery. No firm wanted that liability. I took the hardware store job because it was the only place that didn't run a thorough background check. I wore a baseball cap pulled low and avoided eye contact with customers. I'd become invisible, which was exactly what I needed to survive. At night, I taught myself everything I could about digital forensics and social media analytics. If I couldn't prove my innocence, maybe I could at least understand how she'd done it. The only person who believed me was my younger brother, Austin. He was 19, studying computer science at State, and furious in a way I couldn't afford to be. "Let me hack her accounts," he said during one of his visits to my apartment. "I can find proof she fabricated everything." I stopped him. "No. If you get caught, you go to jail. This doesn't get to destroy you too." But Austin didn't give up. He started following Cassandra's social media obsessively, not to harass her but to study her. "She's gotten really popular," he said one night, scrolling through her Instagram on his laptop. "She's doing speaking events now. Empowerment panels about surviving harassment." I looked over his shoulder. Cassandra had grown her following to 75,000. She'd rebranded herself as a survivor advocate, sharing daily affirmations and stories about healing from trauma. The trauma I'd supposedly caused. The comments were full of women thanking her for her courage. She was making money from this. Sponsored posts, appearance fees, a podcast deal. She'd monetized my destruction. 18 months after everything fell apart, I saw Alexis at a coffee shop downtown. She was with someone new, a tall guy in a business suit who held her hand the way I used to. She saw me before I could leave. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked over. "Kyle," she said softly. "How are you?" The question felt absurd. I was working 60 hours a week at 2 jobs to afford my 400-square-foot apartment. I hadn't spoken to most of my old friends in over a year. I'd stopped going to places I used to love because I was terrified of running into someone who believed Cassandra's lies. "I'm surviving," I said. She looked like she wanted to say something else, something important, but her new boyfriend called her name from the counter. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." She left before I could ask what she meant. Did she finally believe me? Or was she just sorry that my life had imploded? I never found out. That night, I started keeping a journal. Every detail I could remember about my friendship with Cassandra. Every conversation, every favor, every moment that might explain why she'd chosen me as her target. The pattern emerged slowly. Cassandra had always been competitive. In middle school, when I won the science fair and she came in third, she'd stopped talking to me for 2 weeks. In college, when I got into the architecture program and she didn't, she'd switched to marketing but made jokes about it for months. When I got engaged to Alexis, Cassandra had seemed happy, but she'd also started dating a string of guys who looked eerily similar to me. She measured her success against mine constantly. I'd always thought it was normal friend rivalry, the kind that pushes you both to be better. I'd been stupid. What finally triggered her wasn't competition. It was my promotion to junior partner at Brighton. I'd told her at dinner, celebrating with cheap wine at our favorite Italian place. She'd smiled and congratulated me. 2 weeks later, the allegations started. She hadn't destroyed me because I'd hurt her. She destroyed me because I'd succeeded, and she couldn't stand being left behind. That realization was like swallowing glass. Austin called me at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday. "I found something," he said, breathless. "Kyle, I found something big." He'd been monitoring Cassandra's online activity for months, not illegally, just watching her public posts and tagged photos. He'd noticed something strange. In her speaking events and podcast interviews, Cassandra told consistent stories about the harassment she'd endured. The same anecdotes, the same emotional beats. But occasionally, tiny details changed. The color of the car I'd supposedly followed her in. The time of day a threatening call came. The location of an incident. "Liars have good memories for the broad strokes," Austin explained, "but they slip on specifics because they're not recalling events, they're recalling previous performances of the story." He'd created a spreadsheet comparing 15 different tellings of her narrative. The inconsistencies were small but undeniable. It wasn't proof of fabrication. Not the kind that would hold up anywhere official. But it was a crack in the foundation. And cracks can spread. I didn't contact Cassandra. I didn't confront her or expose the inconsistencies Austin found. Instead, I waited and I watched. Cassandra's platform kept growing. She launched a YouTube channel called Survivor Stories where she interviewed other women about their experiences with harassment and abuse. The production quality was professional. She had sponsors, a Patreon with 3,000 supporters paying her monthly. She was making more money than I'd ever earned as an architect. The irony was suffocating. She'd built an empire on my destroyed reputation. But empires need constant fuel. Cassandra needed new content, new stories, new drama to keep her audience engaged. I knew her well enough to know she'd eventually get greedy or careless. I just had to be patient. So I subscribed to her channel under a fake name. I joined her Patreon community. I became one of thousands of faceless supporters, watching every video, reading every post, waiting for the moment she'd slip. It took 11 months. But she did. The slip came during a live podcast recording. Cassandra was interviewing a woman named Brianna who'd survived an abusive relationship. It was emotional, raw, powerful content. Then Cassandra said something strange. I remember when my harasser showed up at my work, she said, and I had to hide in the bathroom for 3 hours until he left. I sat up straight. She'd never mentioned that incident before. Not in any interview, any court document, any conversation with HR. It was a new detail. I checked Austin's spreadsheet. Nothing. The next week, she mentioned it again on Instagram. 3 years ago today, I hid in a bathroom at work, terrified, while my abuser searched for me. But the timeline was wrong. 3 years ago, we were still friends. The allegations hadn't even started yet. She'd invented a new trauma and accidentally placed it in the wrong part of the timeline. It was a small mistake. Most people wouldn't notice. But I did. And I started documenting every new claim she made, cross-referencing them with her previous statements and the actual timeline of events. 6 more inconsistencies appeared over the next 4 months. Cassandra claimed I'd sent flowers to her apartment anonymously, but she'd previously said I'd never known her address. She described a confrontation at a restaurant that supposedly happened in March, but she'd posted Instagram stories from a completely different city that entire week. She said I'd threatened her family, but in an earlier interview, she'd said she kept them out of it to protect them from knowing details. Each lie was small. Each one deniable as misremembering or trauma's effect on memory. But together, they formed a pattern. I compiled everything into a private document. Timestamps, screenshots, video clips, cross-referenced with public records, social media archives, and my own verified alias. I wasn't ready to use it yet. I needed something bigger. Something that would make people question everything, not just pick apart details. I needed Cassandra to expose herself. So I gave her an opportunity. I created a fake email account and sent her a message through her business contact form. The email was simple. I posed as a documentary filmmaker interested in telling her story. I praised her bravery, mentioned a small production company, and asked if she'd be interested in participating in a feature-length film about her experience as a survivor advocate. I made it sound legitimate. Professional but small enough to be believable. Cassandra responded within 8 hours. She was interested. Very interested. We exchanged emails for 3 weeks. I built the fiction carefully. I asked her about her story, her platform, her goals. She sent me a detailed timeline of the harassment, a list of speaking events she'd done, and her media kit. The timeline she sent me contradicted her public statements in 7 significant ways. She'd rewritten her own history so many times, she couldn't keep the lies straight anymore. But I needed more. I needed her to say something definitive, something she couldn't walk back. So I pushed gently. I went on a date a year after moving to Portland. Her name was Simone. We met at a coffee shop where I'd been sketching building concepts. She was a graphic designer, funny and kind, with zero interest in my past. We dated for 6 months before I told her the full story. I expected her to leave. To decide I was too damaged or complicated. Instead, she said, "That explains why you never post anything online." Then she kissed me and asked if I wanted to get Thai food. It wasn't love like I'd had with Alexis. It was quieter, steadier, built on honesty instead of history. I didn't know if it would last. I just knew it felt real. Austin graduated and got a job at a tech company in Seattle. 3 hours away, close enough to visit. He still had the spreadsheet of Cassandra's lies saved on his computer. Just in case she ever tries to resurface, he said. I told him to delete it. She's gone. Let her stay gone. He deleted it that night. We both needed to stop living in the wreckage. 2 years after Cassandra's apology, I got an email from her. The subject line was simple: "I know I don't deserve a response." I stared at it for 20 minutes before opening it. The message was long. She'd been in therapy. She'd been diagnosed with several personality disorders. She understood now what she'd done and why. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she was sorry, truly sorry, and that she was trying to become someone who would never do that to another person. She'd included her therapist's contact information if I wanted to verify she was actually getting help. She said she'd understand if I never replied. I read it 3 times. Then I closed it and never responded. She was right. She didn't deserve a response. Her healing wasn't my responsibility. Her guilt wasn't something I needed to absolve. I'd spent 3 years surviving her lies and 2 years rebuilding. I wasn't going to spend another moment giving her access to my emotional energy. Maybe that makes me cold. Maybe forgiveness is supposed to be noble. But forgiveness requires trust, and she'd proven she was never worthy of mine. Last month, I won a regional design award for the community center project. Small recognition, nothing major, but it meant something. Thomas submitted my work without telling me. When they called my name at the ceremony, I walked up to that stage in a room full of strangers who knew nothing about Cassandra or the allegations or the 3 years I'd lost. They just knew my work. The design was good. That was enough. I thought about Cassandra while holding the award. Not with anger. Just with a strange sense of distance. She'd tried to erase me, and for a while, she'd succeeded. But erasure isn't permanent unless you accept it. I'd refused to disappear. I'd rebuilt from nothing. And now I was standing in front of people who respected me for something she could never take away: my actual ability, my actual work. The apology had come too late to save the life I'd had. But maybe that life needed to end anyway. Maybe I needed to lose everything to figure out what actually mattered. I still live in Portland. I still work at Thomas's firm, though I'm a partner now. Simone and I moved in together last spring. Austin visits for holidays. I've designed 12 buildings that stand in the city, solid and functional, proof that I exist beyond the lies someone told about me. Sometimes people recognize my name from the news coverage years ago. Sometimes they ask what happened. I tell them the truth briefly and then I change the subject. I don't owe anyone my trauma as entertainment. What Cassandra did was unforgivable. The apology changed nothing about the past. But here's what I learned from surviving her: your reputation is just other people's opinions. Your character is who you are when everything's been stripped away. She destroyed the first. She never touched the second. I'm 31 now. I have a career I rebuilt from ashes. I have people who love me for who I am, not who I was. I have proof that you can survive betrayal and still build something worth having. Cassandra's apology came too late. But I didn't need it anymore. I'd already won.